Hot Button.
I got the bird flu.
That's what you get for bird watching.
Yeah. Is this going to be our cold open bird watching talk? You got any questions for me?
Why?
Yeah, so how goes your bird watching?
I don't know whether the man starts bird watching first or buys binoculars first, but
which one was it for you?
Bird watching.
Oh.
They look.
So were you just squinting for a while until you were like, I need a pair of binoculars?
Oh, I'm blind.
Oh, okay.
They're for show.
You don't even know if they're birds that you're staring at then.
No, it's awesome. I downloaded an app. They sit on the tree outside of my house. I need to relax. I'll try anything.
Have you seen a pigeon yet?
I thought you were going to say therapist. Because he's like, I'm so stressed, I need to relax. And you're like, have you seen a pigeon yet?
Wait, what about a penguin?
Yeah. I've been at the zoo.
I meant in the wild. All right, so this episode is going to be interesting because not only is much of it going to be biographical, but it also involves someone whose work I have passionately followed for most of their career. They still continue to this day to be a huge influence on the way that I think about games, and I firmly believe that their role in the industry and the things that they have created and built in it are of an undeniable importance. Whether it was through writing, editing, hiring, video producing, podcasting before it was even called podcasting, this person has actively been shaping the way that we look at criticism and game analysis for literal decades now. This is Hot Button. I'm Randall Beatrice. I'm here as always with Austin Blakesley.
Yo, yo.
And Chris Antuano.
Yeah, I was going to make a bird sound and I realized I can't.
After getting through that opener, I'm just curious, Austin, you know who I'm, not to speak for you, but I'm sure you probably feel similarly as I know you've been aware of who this person was before even I was, and it was you and a friend and listener of the podcast alone who got me deep into where he went after the story and we were going to get into today. But Chris, I'm curious, do you know who I'm referring to?
It was Hitler because you were saying how much you appreciate him and he influenced you. But now I'm not sure because I don't think their video games were out yet. I know who you're talking about.
I am talking about...
I don't know a lot about him though. It's learning for me too.
Cool. I am talking, of course, about Jeff Gerstmann. I'm sure you know, I guess, of him. His prominence as a figure in the gaming space has certainly changed over the years, so I always kind of wonder which venues happen to find him. But are you familiar with kind of his work at all? Have you ever read or seen any videos or anything he's produced?
I'm sure I have, accidentally or just have, but not, actively seek it out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean? Austin, what was your first kind of, introductory to kind of who he was? I mean, were you a follower of GameSpot?
What we're going to talk about.
Yeah? Kind of mine too.
Yeah.
It's interesting because this story was one of the first stories that made me aware of the people who are actually writing reviews. Mm-hmm. Because I've been reading game reviews ever since I was a little kid. I was pretty active on IGN and stuff like that. Very obsessed with game forums back in the day when I was getting into playing video games. Probably because I was maybe around the N64 and PlayStation days that I actually started using the internet and tied that into my biggest hobby. But I don't think it was until
downloading and jerking off to LimeWire porn.
This is pre-LimeWire, yeah.
Bear share.
Napster. Was Napster just music?
You got videos. Okay. I downloaded a dope AMV on there.
Was it Linkin Park and Dragon Ball Z?
Fuck you, man. Yeah, it was. What's the problem with that?
But no, this story was definitely the first time that I had a face behind all the text I was reading for a lot of my childhood. So that was very interesting. So I actually met him once. Were you with me when I met him?
Yes.
Okay. This was at PAX East, which is actually going on right now at the time of this recording. He seemed like a really cool dude, and he was nice enough to not only give me the time to chat with him on such a busy schedule, but he also signed a copy of Mario Party for me, which he was not thrilled about. But before I get into kind of the backstory of his career, I guess it's probably important to first say why we were talking about him today. So back in 2007, during the rise of the seventh generation of consoles, as well as an all-new high for internet gaming coverage, Jeff became quite the topic of conversation around the scene regarding the relationship shared between those working in the field of advertising for some pretty notable publishers and those in charge of the critics trying to give honest takes on major releases for readers and potential buyers. This discussion being ignited following his sudden and controversial dismissal from GameSpot.com, a very popular gaming website in which he was the editorial director of. I think he was in charge of reviews at the time of this.
Yeah.
With the center reason of the termination being his personal, not-so-glowing review of IO Interactive's Kane and Lynch Deadman, a third-person co-op crime drama shooter published by Eidos. Is it Eidos or Eidos?
Eidos.
Okay. Really?
I don't know.
Well, a company that at the time was putting some pretty heavy advertising money into the website for promotions. The incident surrounding this eruption built also from a couple of other previously released titles in similar cases, and it became known as, I'm not...
Gerstmann game.
I was like, considering where we're at these days, I bet he probably wouldn't appreciate being so ubiquitously tied to such a dumb name.
I also agree with Randy. I only said it because it made him uncomfortable, and that's the only reason I exist.
Yeah, that was, and like I think in interviews years later, he always says so. Out of respect for him, we're just going to refer to it as what it was, which is it was bullshit.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Chris, when kind of this happened? This is going back.
Maybe. Yeah, I don't know. 2007.
Mm-hmm.
What year was that? 2007.
How old were you? Putting you on the spot.
Dude, it's all the blurs. I was definitely high. I can tell you that.
I didn't even say a date.
I just all of 2007. So I was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, us too.
So yeah, I was high.
Well, maybe the people who made these decisions were in the story as well.
Oh wait, didn't Halo come out that year?
It did. Halo 3.
Yeah.
Halo 3
That's
came
all
out
I
right
remember.
before this. It was like the month that this happened. Because wasn't that November of 2007? Or was it October?
September.
Okay, that was earlier than I thought. I thought that was more in the holiday season. So Jeff Gerstmann began working in video games journalism in the early 90s, doing like freelance work. He got a job with a print tech magazine that was similar to Wired. I forget what it was. He mentioned it, I think, on the podcast before. It's obviously no longer around. And I also found it funny that he was also a musician and he worked in a movie theater, which I did. And we're all musicians, so it's it's kind of.
I mean, what are you trying to say here?
Stop.
Do you want us
You're
to
like
say,
that lady
do you want
we
us
watched
to
in
say,
that documentary, but like obsessed with Steve Jobs.
Yeah, but Steve Jobs sucks.
You start wearing like Nike Airs like Jeff.
But in 1996, he was hired as an intern for GameSpot.com pretty soon after its initial launch. So it actually had launched in 96. So it's going back. I think IGN launched around a similar time. I think it was an N64 like fan site before. I don't remember. But
Imagine Games Network.
Yeah? Is that what it
stands for?
Okay. It's weird that I actually didn't know that.
Yeah, no, me either.
Yeah.
I thought it was something like informative gaming news.
That would have made sense.
That makes a lot more sense. But no.
His first credited review was Tempest X3 for the PlayStation. For those that maybe aren't aware of the history of GameSpot, it was launched in May of 96, and they focused their attention exclusively on PC games at the time. They did have a sister site called VideoGameSpot.com going live in December of that year, and it was eventually merged into GameSpot under one banner in 1998, which I'm really glad that I've said GameSpot so many times and I haven't said GameStop yet, because I know that's going to happen, because GameStop gets mentioned later on in the story as well. By 99, it was amongst the most visited game-related sites on the web, along with IGN and CNET, CNET being their parent company. CNET's probably more tech, I guess, but they do have a video games division.
Yeah, they got Jeff Beckler.
Yes. Yeah, Jeff Beckler rules. And Jeff Gerstmann was a vital part of the team responsible for this success. He continued to work at GameSpot for 11 years, running a weekly blog, hosting numerous podcasts, producing video content. He even represented the site on shows such as Good Morning America and G4's Attack of the Show. I know you're doing research on the Dreamcast. I think that was his thing on Good Morning America, was about the launch of the Dreamcast, which was apparently a huge event. But this eventually led him to become head of reviews for them, because I think they divide up their divisions into reviews, previews, and maybe just like a general news. I'm not sure. But this allowed him to bring on board some fellow friends and coworkers who still today remain active in the industry, either with him or on the developer side of games. Now to get to where the story actually starts, this is November 13th, 2007. Kane and Lynch Deadman officially releases. The 360 and PS3 versions. I don't think the PC port would hit shelves until later that month on the 20th. It's hard to say for certain, but it appears that there was a review embargo which lifted on launch day, making the big first wave of its scores to all come in on that morning. The game itself received some pretty polarizing reviews, some as high as an 84, some as low as a 30, with the average being around like a 65 according to the site Metacritic. Did either of you guys play Kane and Lynch Deadman? Do you remember this game? It was made by the guys that made Hitman back in the
No,
day.
I don't
Yes,
think I've ever played
I
Kane and
watched this review because I was a huge Freedom Fighters fan.
Yes, me too.
And they
Dude,
made
I love
Freedom
Freedom
Fighters.
Fighters is such a
Yeah.
good game.
Yeah,
They
Freedom
made
Fighters
that.
was awesome.
That was IO, and they were like, "This is the spiritual successor
Yeah,
or whatever."
they did.
So,
I think they
Like
did say
Kane and
that.
Lynch was the spiritual
Yeah,
successor
I
to
think
Freedom
they-
Fighters?
Yeah, kind
Something
of like
like
Time
that.
Splitters.
Dude,
and
do you remember the
Perfect
game
Dark
mode
and
with
stuff.
Freedom Fighters where you could like capture bases in like a square and like
Yeah,
send
yeah,
soldiers?
yeah, it was awesome.
Me
You
and
keep
my buddy Alex
spawning
would
people
verse
and then-
each other and just play that game.
Yeah,
for
the
fucking
multiplayer was really cool. It was
hours,
weird.
dude.
Yeah.
I actually like, so maybe unpopular opinion, but the funny thing about the story is like I actually liked
Yeah.
Kane and Lynch Dead
the
Man.
multiplayer in that game was cool as fuck.
Yeah, the multiplayer was a really neat idea, which is one of the
Yeah.
things he does note later on when we get to the review part. And it had problems. I granted, like I haven't played this game since it came out, but I loved split screen co-op stuff because this was after Gears of War, after Halo. Like I was all about playing split screen co-op games on the same couch on a big TV.
was.
You're right. I still am. It's dying, and then it's
dying?
I know. It's hard. It breaks my heart.
You live in the
But it was
past.
cool. Like the game wasn't particularly long. It kind of had like a Tarantino Reservoir Dogs sort of like aesthetic. But it was basically these two guys that they break out. You break out of jail, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah. And then you're criminals on the run from the law, and you get caught up with these mafia groups. It's been a long time, so I'm probably butchering this, like trying to remember the story. But what I thought was really cool is that like each level was like a radically different set piece. Like there was like a car chase level and a bank heist. The bank heist level was really neat.
For all you
but-
Kane and Lynch fanatics out there that want to correct Randy, at Restart Randy on Twitter.
They did make a sequel as well. Yeah,
That sequel's not good.
Yeah, I didn't get me as much, but it's funny because I think that might have reviewed better. But I liked Kane and Lynch. Besides the point, but
Kane and Clank. He's a big fan.
Ratchet and Lynch, Lynch and Clank.
Whoa.
So, yeah, that doesn't sound.
Ratchet
Yeah.
and Lynch does not sound good. They got a 99 on Fox gaming website.
Oh, Jesus.
So Metacritic is able to build that number from calculating the scores of all of their certified review sources. GameSpot is, of course, one of those sources, and an important one at that, as not all the publications appear to be created equal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I'm going to weigh in on this.
Yeah, I was never been able to figure it out.
So for those of you out there that check Metacritic, which is probably a lot of you.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, Metacritic is,
I shouldn't, but I do.
for both movies and games and music, even though music reviews are bullshit.
God, yeah, they do have music reviews.
But it's a weighted average. So basically, Metacritic has something going on behind the scenes that nobody knows because it's like a trade secret. It's
And they'll
not.
never tell.
They'll never tell. But basically, in order to get on Metacritic, you have to give a game a score, which is why certain sites are no longer on Metacritic because they don't give scores anymore.
Oh, like Kotaku and Polygon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah, they don't do it anymore.
You know, they just do good journalism.
Yeah.
but yeah, you have to.
Yeah, you don't have a score to scroll
You
down
have to
to.
register with them, and then when you register with them, they basically put you into a grouping, and then your score is weighted based on what grouping you're in.
So like all the blogs.
Yes.
Like,
So
are-
all the
That
blogs.
kind of makes sense.
It does.
Yeah.
But the issue obviously comes from probably corruption.
Well, I mentioned
or
this before we
bias,
started, but I remember like you could see like 15 different blogs review a game and the score not move, and then like IGN's review will drop, and then the number will drastically
But in all
change.
fairness, IGN is a big company that hires people.
You're right,
That,
yeah,
you
and
know,
so is
are
GameSpot,
supposed to be
yeah.
more professional. Not that like a blogger is not professional, but
Yeah.
you know what I mean. Like, do you want like a group of back alley
It's-
surgeons changing
Yeah.
your heart, or like one really well trained
A lot
guy?
of the times too, the thing that gets me about Metacritic, and this isn't even in my script, but this is like how each version of a game has different reviews based on their sources.
Because there's blogs that review
Just
only
Nintendo
Switch
games and like just
Yeah.
and that makes sense because you used to have OXM and Sony's magazine stuff that would just review their stuff, but the problem in that was like when companies send out review codes, they'll send out 1,000 PS4 codes, and then when you check the Xbox One version, the score will be way different because there's only 8 reviews as opposed to the 70 of the PS4 version, which is
Right.
so it can be hard to tell. Like
So-
Obviously, you're trying to
you get all different scores for the same game.
Staticize. What's the word for that? Make something into a statistic. That word. You
Staticize.
Google it. They're trying to do something subjective and turn it into a statistic.
Yeah. And not every
And it's obviously difficult.
Not every version of a game is created equal
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so like there's no real solution to this either, because sometimes like you know you'll get the PC versions fucked up or the console versions are fucked up and the PC versions
the dragons fly backwards for 4 years.
Yeah, sometimes your saves delete themselves in the platform that you're playing on.
So, like I said, Metacritic's weightings are not public knowledge. However, I found an article posted to Gama Sutra in 2013 by a man named Simon Parkin, which was about a study done at Full Sail University by a man named Adams Greenwood Erickson and his class. And basically, they went through review scores, used a bunch of complicated math, and tried to figure out what the tiers were. So what their data shows is that there are essentially 6 tiers.
Oh, geez, that's more than I thought.
Well, I already call it bullshit because no mathematician should go into Full Sail.
I wonder if I thought it would be split up by like followers. Like, hey, your blog is this many readers. And
They organize it into 6 tiers.
Okay.
Ranging from highest to lowest, obviously. It's 1.5 times, 1.25 times, 1 time, 0.75, 0.5, and 0.25. So in that tier list, they actually give you a long list, which I am not going to read. You can find the article, but IGN is listed in the 1.5 tier, along with people like Game Informer, Game Pro, Game Trailers, the New York Times, Wired. GameSpot is listed in the 1.25 tier, along with people like GameSpy and Edge Magazine and G4 and things like that. Yeah. So
what about Forbes?
I don't know.
Did they do scoring?
I don't think they do. I always think it's strange that Forbes has like
they do a
pretty decent gaming journalism.
So there was Entertainment Weekly is like the worst fucking magazine in the world, but for a few years there was like some random editor there before they probably realized that he was on the payroll and fired him, who reviewed games and he was like really good at it. And,
I was gonna say,
all their movie reviews and music reviews are trash, and there's like one guy who cares so much and stuck at working at the wrong place. That's like, but yeah. And also, not all these sources use the same scales. They'll use a 5-point scale or 20
I found
or 10.
I found that out. So basically, Metacritic is a 100-point scale.
Yeah.
If you review games or movies or whatever on a 10-point scale, like IGN does, like 9.5s or whatever, that's pretty easy to translate. Just take the decimal point out.
Yeah.
If you do 5,
slow down, buddy.
If you do 5 stars, that's pretty eady. 5 stars is 100.
20, 40,
4.5 stars
60.
is a 90.
People get a lot of shit for that.
If you do 4 stars or you do letter grades, you can actually go.
How does that work?
You can actually go. Hold on. You can actually go on Metacritic's website and
they tell you what
that translates to.
Huh. My high school did the 10-point rating scale.
Metacritic and the Metascore magic. Okay. So it says 4 stars is 100, 3.5 is 88, 3 is 75, and then it goes down from there. For A or A plus, it's 100. A minus is 91. B plus is 83. B is 75, etc., all the way down to an F being a 0. And then
it's a 0.
Yeah. But this Full Sail group of researchers and students, they were basically able to create a formula and run a bunch of reviews through this formula, and within a reasonable margin of error, equal the exact same scores that Metacritic had. So that's why they published it. Because they did it for 6 months and were able to, within a reasonable margin of error, a couple percent. Hold on. I'm getting there.
All right.
This article angered a lot of people because games, unlike movies and music where nobody really cares about reviews, although movies are starting to realize that Rotten Tomatoes might be cutting into their profits and they're trying to do something about it. But games is like Metacritic has a big say in games. Metacritic scores can get studios shut down. They can get people fired.
Bonuses.
People can lose bonuses. Franchises can get canceled. It's real bad.
You mentioned the Obsidian's game earlier. Wasn't it around Fallout New Vegas getting like between an 84 and an 85? They like needed an 85 for everyone to get the bonuses.
Somebody posted a review for, was it New Vegas?
I thought it was New Vegas.
It might have been, but somebody posted a review for a game. Oh no, BioShock Infinite had this too with 2K.
They got like a 95, didn't they?
Or something like that. Maybe? I don't remember. It was like they needed to get an 85 on Metacritic in order for the developers to get their bonus, and somebody posted a less than positive review, which knocked it down from an 85 to an 84, and a developer went online and was like, I lost my bonus because
of one review.
Because of one review.
And that's all because that's not that guy's fault. He's not a part of that relationship, but like that's really fucked up.
It has been shown by people like Forbes and the New York Times to affect stock prices.
Oh, yeah.
Metacritic scores.
Fuck.
Yeah, it got a little bit of traction, this study, because people are like, yo, that's kind of fucked up. Like, IGN gets to be 1.5 and, like, I don't know, nintendozone.blog.nz or whatever has, like, 0.25.
Yeah.
So Metacritic posted on social media, and they said the following statement, which I'm going to read in full.
Okay.
Today, the website Gamasutra, quote unquote, there's a lot of shade thrown in this, quote unquote, revealed the weights that we assign to each game publication for the purposes of calculating metascores based on a presentation given at the Game Developers Conference this morning. There's just one major problem with that.
Did that at GDC?
Neither that site nor the person giving the presentation got those weights from us. It's simply their best guesses based on research.
Sounds accurate.
And the Gamasutra headline is misleading in this respect. And here's the most important thing. Their guesses are wildly, wholly inaccurate. Among other things, we use far fewer tiers than listed in the article. The disparity between tiers listed in the article is far more extreme than what we actually use for Metacritic. For example, they suggest the highest weighted publications have their scores counted 6 times as much as the lowest weighted publications.
Whoa.
That isn't anywhere close to reality. Our publication weights are much closer together and have much less of an impact on the total score calculation. Last, but definitely not least, our placement of publications in each tier differs from what is displayed in the article. The article overvalues some publications and undervalues others, sometimes comically so. In addition, our weights are periodically adjusted as needed if over time a publication demonstrates an increase or decrease in overall quality. Which that last thing is weird because that means like there are people in the lower tiers and Metacritic just thinks that you guys kind of suck.
Well, that was, I mean,
It's
like
get
their
your game
statement
together.
was worse.
Yeah.
I thought. Like that was
But
their way of damage control.
It does reveal the whole that they do weight it in tiers.
Okay,
It's
so
not
then
like
that's
individual.
quoted from them.
Yes.
But those tiers you read earlier, that's their tier, so they eventually released it.
No, they never. They still have.
Okay, you were just.
Yeah,
If anything,
that was the studies tier.
The
that was
studies
the
tier.
studies
The studies
tier.
tier
Okay,
was
okay.
like more fair.
So, but yeah, it was all within like.
not
within
6 times.
One.
Well, no, the studies tiers were 6 times. It was 1.5 to 0.25. That is 6 times. That's what they're talking about. Yeah.
Sorry, I read that as like times 6.
Come
I
on,
was
guys,
like,
learn math. It's important.
No.
Pass.
Also, one little tiny thing about Metacritic, and then I'm going to pass it back to Randy to continue our actual story. So movies have much lower scores. You mentioned this before we started recording.
Yeah.
Movies have much lower scores than games. Like a good movie will get like a 70 on Metacritic, and a good game will get like a 90.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is that movies are essentially graded on a curve, kind of like a college class, where they like weigh each score against other scores
films?
at the time and kind of like they don't all clump up together.
Weird, okay.
Whereas games, it's like 5 games come out on one day and they'll all get like 79s, 82s, they don't care.
That's weird. I wonder what. So it's a time thing.
Yeah.
But that's different. Like maybe games can be judged better. Like some movies, like.
Movies are more subjective because games have mechanics that can
Well,
be
you mentioned that they do
music
reviews. Speaking of subjective, also get rid of user reviews entirely on that fucking website.
Oh yeah, it's great in their Q&A. It's
Metacritic's user review.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how that nightmare is calculated.
In the Metacritic
They
thing
should change
that I
it so you
read,
can only give a 0 and a 10. It's weird.
in the Metacritic thing that I read, it's a Q&A, and the last question on there is, do user reviews factor? And it just says absolutely not or something like that.
Of course. God, what a nightmare.
But so they have tiers. They have 5 tiers. Universal acclaim, generally favorable, mixed or average, generally unfavorable, or overwhelmingly disliked.
Yeah. And they use
5.
those on Wikipedia when you read about the reception of each title.
So movies, it's 100 to 81 is universal acclaim.
That's a big,
80 to 61. I'm not going to read the rest because it's every 20 numbers.
Yeah, that definitely
games
is.
are not, though. Yeah. Universal acclaim for games is 100 to 90.
Yeah. Smaller margin.
Generally favorable is 89 to 75.
There's more mechanics in games.
Yeah.
I get it.
Mixed or average is 74 to 50. Generally unfavorable is 49 to 20. And then overwhelming dislike is the only thing that's the same, where it's 19 to 0.
And not many games get that. Like that's
some bad ones do.
Oh,
but
of
yeah,
course.
Truck game where there's like no
Big
clip
rigs.
in.
That's because people are better at making games than they are at movies.
Which the guy who reviewed that will come up in our
Come
story.
at me, movie industry.
So Jeff Gerstmann, being the reviewer of the title for GameSpot, like they have a team of reviews. He oversees those teams, but the review was written and edited by him. He released both his written review and his video review of the game to go up release day morning. And he gave the game a 6.0, which grants the title with a fair rating according to GameSpot. Which, what's a 60 on Metacritic for games? It's still positive, isn't it? Or is no?
No, that was average.
Average, okay.
Yeah.
And the game got around a 65, so it seems like it was in the wheelhouse. But see, I did it. GameSpot GameSpot was notoriously known for their lower than average review scores at this time, and maybe a little bit
tougher.
Yeah, well, much of this was due to their in-house personal spreadsheet that builds the score from numbers given to categories. So they literally had an algorithm. So it was like the categories were gameplay, graphics, which is a very outdated term now, sound, value, and reviewers tilt, which reviewers tilt is the person reviewing it, like their own personal. So the way that things were calculated is lots of times the numbers would come out to 8.6. And they pointed that out in later podcasts, which is very funny because if you go and you read some of the most like revered games of all time, and they all like equal it out to 8.6 for whatever reason, because the system was put in place back in the day because of the sheer volume of reviews that the staff had to write. They were making it their mission to review every single game, but like the problem is some of the greatest games of all time may not look amazing, or like one of the categories is value. You know, it's like, what if the best game you've ever played was only a couple hours long? Like look at something like Portal 1. You could beat it in like a half hour to 45 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, so it's
also
like...
value is determined by time.
Of course, yeah. Up until this point, their only perfect score of a 10 was given to Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time.
Second best Zelda game, yeah.
Until a year after this incident. There's some daggers being stared at this table. So, but it's like, to be a site for that long, like from 96 to 2007, I think their next perfect score was in 2008. That was their only perfect game. And even that had some like pushback from higher ups at the time.
What was that, 2008, do you know?
I think it might have been Mario Galaxy.
I was
their
going to say,
second
it's got to be Mario.
I don't remember.
When was Sunshine come out? Was that 6, 5?
That was 2004. I was on GameCube. 2002. Yeah. I think. Yeah. And I do believe the Ocarina of Time review was also written by Jeff. But what's funny is like...
Smart man.
But what's funny is like now they're maybe a little more liberal with 10s, but people attack IGN a lot because they give a couple 10s out a year, and I think that's fine. Like it's like... I don't...
Games are better
They
than
don't
ever.
have to be... like it doesn't have to be a mythical thing to achieve a 10. Ocarina of Time like is a perfect game when it came out in 1998, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But
somewhere
like,
around there.
2007 was a hell of a fucking year for games. Like, it's crazy that nothing else. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. So other reviews began to hit Metacritic as well. This was also around the era that game companies were, as Austin mentioned, heavily incentivized to go after high scores, no matter what it took. The 6.0 that Jeff gave seemed to be pretty in line with other reviewers' opinions on the game. He noted his reasons for the score being what it was because of the weak AI, feel of the weapons, a general dislike of the characters and story despite being very much into the concept. He did, however, like you said, he praised and actually we both said this, he praised the wide variety of level set pieces and its interesting multiplayer mode. Its multiplayer mode was really cool. I don't know if...
One side note that I forgot that I just looked, I was scrolling through the Metacritic article that I brought up. Metacritic was purchased by CNET 2 years before this happened.
Holy shit.
So
Are you serious?
GameSpot and Metacritic were on the same thing. They're now both owned by CBS.
Yeah, which I get to that later. But I can't believe I didn't.
Yeah,
I didn't unearth that. That's really
They're not
that
owned
makes
by
the story.
CBS. Yeah,
which is owned by somebody. Fucking assholes.
AOL, Time Warner, Taco Bell,
West Moonves.
So what made Jeff's consensus so different than all the others? Well, during the month of November in 2007, GameSpot.com was absolutely decorated in Kane and Lynch promos. It will likely never be revealed just how much money from publisher Eidos was being put into the campaign partnership, but many close to it stated that it was a rather substantial amount.
Rather substantial for 2007. What's that, like $10?
Yeah, those pores.
Everything's so much better now.
I'm just kidding.
Good.
That was 1 year before the housing crisis, so they
was,
were probably
that's right.
overflowing with money. God.
So this showed in the materials as well. Visitors of the site were not just treated to flash-based banner ads, but also an invitation to mix their own trailers and pick their own theme that would be featured on their personal homepage.
I did that.
Did you
I remember
really?
that. I did
oh
that.
my god! Mind you, this was before decent ad blockers, but like
I was like,
you
they were like, do you want Kane or Lynch to be on the banner? And I was like, I don't know who they are. It's not out yet.
Yeah, I was gonna. Yeah, you had Halo 3 on the mind. You didn't care.
Also, Rock Band, Mass Effect.
Yeah, this was 2007. Modern Warfare came out the same month.
Yep.
That probably played a big role in the weighting of the score of this game. Like, this release probably seemed pretty quaint considering what... I think because, like, Orange Box just came out as well. And,
yep.
Notorious trash.
The first Assassin's Creed came out that year.
It did, yeah.
That was a big year.
It certainly was.
So, Kane and Lynch, big game that year.
Maybe it couldn't hold a candle this stuff. But
the Kane and Lynch series on Xbox One, PS4, and Nintendo Switch.
Those never got remastered, I guess. But so Jeff was, of course, aware of this and continued to review the title as he saw fit, without the fear of corporate backlash. Any ethical journalist would tell you the strict code of moral conducts that you are taught to uphold by, and he has went on to say that any advertiser, developer, publisher, or manufacturer should absolutely understand this standard. If not, it is a huge misunderstanding of the working relationship.
We gave you money. Say our game's good.
By the way, side note, the 10 that you were talking about, 2008, Metal Gear Solid 4.
Wow, really?
And GTA
4?
No, GTA 4. Which one came out first? Because they were both 2008.
I think GTA 4, they were both in the spring of 2008, I think.
I think it was GTA 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That got a 10.
That game was really good at the time. GTA 5 is just better.
You mean the beta for GTA 5 got a 10? The physics engine test for GTA 5.
Red Dead 2 just got the Game of the Year as well. So traditionally, when a bad review is written, it is not uncommon for a publisher's PR department to try and contact a writer's supervisor or HR manager and attempt to contest the product's score. It is their job after all. However, as long as everything in the actual review is factually accurate...
Yeah, exactly. It should be up for debate.
Yeah.
But that's fine.
Then really no other step should ever be done. Jeff has openly talked about these calls before, and they're like, we don't think that game should have gotten this score. We think it should have gotten this score. And he's always says the same thing. He goes, yeah, I'll look into it, and then hang up and then never do anything.
I remember that. I remember when he talked about that.
Yeah, because it's like... Even after a company tries to make an empty threat afterwards, like refusing to send out codes for future reviews. Maybe we'll do an episode at some point about it, but do you remember, was it Bethesda that said, like, we're not going to send review codes out anymore?
Yeah.
And then Doom came out and it was incredible, but everybody thought it was going to suck. And like,
which I think Kotaku is blackballed by them.
Really? They don't even do scores. What the fuck?
I don't know.
Yeah. Blackballed by who? Metacritic?
Bethesda.
Bethesda.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't remember.
So now their staff has to go out and buy the game when the day
I think that might have been repaired, but I remember at one point Kotaku posting an article, and it wasn't about this, but in the article it did say that Kotaku was no longer receiving review copies from a publisher. I don't remember which one.
Okay.
But they got
a few publishers have done it. Japanese publishers especially get hesitant about it, but like...
Yeah, those guys aren't even Japanese over there at Kotaku.
But like, imagine if that worked that way for film, right? Like, imagine like... whether it's a screening or a movie is out and people are able to see it, and then they write a review, and then someone like contacts fucking
A.O. Scott from the New York Times shows up. Sorry, man, not on the list.
Yeah.
Get out.
Like, you know, Siskel and Ebert get an email. It's like, we think this movie should have been a thumbs up, not a thumbs down.
They're dead.
I know they're both dead now, but
too soon, man.
Yeah, joke thumbs down.
Especially Siskel. Roper is still alive.
Rope too soon, dog. Just leave it. Didn't one of them kill themselves. That's the connection I was trying to make.
So text and video...
That's a stretch.
Stretch. Not giving you that one yet. So text and video go up the morning of the 13th on GameSpot on their front page while the banner's still around it. So the banner is like, hey, buy Kane and Lynch. And then the middle of the page is, here's the Kane and Lynch review. And you click on it.
It's mediocre.
Yeah. The next day on the 14th...
You know what's funny? I watched Jeff's review.
Before it got
taken... which we'll get to.
Yeah.
Before it got taken down.
Yeah. It didn't take long.
No. I watched it the day it came out because, like I said, I was interested in the game, Freedom Fighters fan.
Totally.
I bought the game because of his review.
Yeah.
Like, it was a 6,
he
but...
he didn't hate it.
Yeah, it was a 6, but all the stuff he was complaining about, I was like, I can deal with that. I kind of want to play the next game from these guys.
Yeah. I don't disagree with his review at all.
No,
but
that's the funny thing, that they're like, you got a 6? No one's going to buy our game. It's like, if you watch the video, he doesn't hate it.
Yeah.
It's okay. And I was like, okay, it's fine to me. I just want to play the game.
Especially
so I bought
back then, I bought, like, most games.
Yeah.
But, like...
I was going to say, I probably purchased more okay games than I had, like, good games.
Yeah.
And it clearly didn't affect the game sold well enough to get a sequel, so, you know. But so the next day, the 14th, all it took us like 24 hours, the video review was taken down. And the written review got altered.
By who? Should we get into that? Right.
When members of the site asked why, those moderating the site in forums stated that a revised one would be up soon. That's all they said. There is some confusion, but for the most part, people didn't think too much of it at the time, because they have pulled videos and edited stuff before, but the real questions began to rise when Jeff suddenly wasn't featured on the following weekly live show On the Spot, as well as the Hot Spots podcast. Which, also fuck Rooster Teeth, and I went on a rant at this, by the way, in my research, because apparently Rooster Teeth also has a show called On the Spot that came out like a decade later, and it's just like, you really didn't bother to research that at all? Like, Austin made a joke about like if Foo Fighters put out an album called Appetite for Destruction.
Well, they did make that entire song where every riff is a rip of a hard rock riff.
But On the Spot and the Hot Spot podcast were like some of the first real ventures into that type of coverage for games. Like, no respect for your ancestors.
No, of course not.
Yeah. Speaking of conglomerates.
Also, you want to talk
Us here, the major people here at Hot Button, we're taking down Rooster Teeth.
Side note, you want to talk about beefs involving Jeff and Rooster Teeth? We could get into that whole thing.
Oh my god, that was really
nice.
funny.
A little side story.
Yeah.
When Jeff reviewed Fallout 4, Jeff being Jeff, the critic that he is, gave Fallout 4 a game that deserved it a less than stellar score. I think it might have been like...
You give it a
3?
He gave it a 3 out of 5 for consoles, a 4 out of 5 for PC.
Yeah, because it didn't run well on consoles.
No.
And there's like, you can find a clip of...
That's generous.
Yeah.
you can find a clip of Rooster Teeth podcast where they're just like shitting on Jeff because...
It's fucking kids.
Yeah, because they're like, he's like... This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. That game's great.
He's probably doing it for clicks.
Yeah, he's doing it for clicks. He's just everyone else is giving it a great score, and he's just doing this for clicks.
This dude who's like 40, who's been reviewing games.
Somebody asked Jeff about it on like Tumblr because he has like a Tumblr with open questions or whatever, and he's like, "Dude, I don't fucking care."
That is the only right response, really. So his friends and colleagues on the podcast didn't mention his absence, as most of them were out the previous week on work-related trips and assumed he was either away on something similar or took a personal day, because this was the busy holiday season. And so like a lot of times working at companies like this, you would go, like they're based out of San Francisco, where a lot of game developers and publishers are located.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they would go see games all the time, so they were out of office. Another week passes, no new video is uploaded. His coworkers and followers start to get concerned that something fishy was going on behind the scenes. And that's because there was.
Yeah.
This news wouldn't get out until later, but apparently the morning of Wednesday, November 28th, Jeff is officially terminated, while he and the entire staff are restricted to speak on the matter due to strict legal HR policy. Those closest to him there didn't even find out until they literally saw him packing up boxes, cleaning out his office that day. Yeah. Less than 24 hours later, a swirl of, quote, rumors begin to break out as the Kane and Lynch banner ads all disappear from the site. Was Jeff really let go from over a decade of work at GameSpot because of a mediocre score of a game?
I know the answer to that question.
Well,
I don't know.
so this is where it gets interesting, and this is probably our introduction to the story of how we found out, right? Yeah, because
this was
a
the
big
third
deal.
intro of this episode. Is that what you...
This is where the story begins, but this is where like it broke out of the inner politics
where it went
of work.
from being Jeff Gerstmann to Gerstmann Game.
Okay. I can feel him twitching from here. So the next morning, on Friday the 30th, a popular gaming webcomic and Runners of PAX publish a satirical comic addressing the termination and also release a more informal statement making some pretty heavy claims from sources closest to them on what the reason for the firing actually was.
Penny Arcade.
Yeah.
For those that don't know, because you didn't say the name Penny Arcade.
I didn't. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Were you an active reader of Penny Arcade back in the day?
Yeah, I was dumb.
I was too.
Okay.
Penny Arcade's not bad. I think it's of a different era, so it's still going now.
I love PAX.
Yeah, I love PAX too. You know,
I grew out of Penny Arcade, I think.
Me too. I think that was my issue as well.
But it's nothing that they're doing wrong. I just grew out of
me neither. And there are still some golden like strips. I think like that really still.
I just don't check it.
No, me neither. Did you ever read Penny Arcade back in the day? Were you a big webcomic guy? No. In high school, that was like the biggest thing in the world for me for a while. Everybody just reading.
Yeah, they stopped printing comics on paper and started printing them on the internet.
Yo, can you believe that shit?
Yeah, I wasn't on the computer like you nerds. I was playing Dungeons and Dragons in my basement. Fucking assholes.
So they put their comic up. They even linked it to a Wired article that also went up earlier that day that was actively searching for answers. This, like I also said, this exploded the story into a space where millions suddenly became aware of the situation, rather than just this small message board chatter before. I could describe the comic. That's like a weird thing to do.
That is weird.
So I'll just sum it up. Yeah, but it is a pretty funny comic. I should have showed you it maybe before we started, just because it's a funny comic. It's basically Jeff sitting there and a guy in a black suit standing over him, talking about like, ooh, you know, that's a bad review that you gave us. He's like, do you see that users of the site can like make their own trailers? You see that it's got these banner ads? And then he like leans in closer of him, and he's just like, hey, did you see all your shit locked outside of your locked office or whatever? Yeah, and he's like, hey, it's like you sensing the pattern here or something. It's pretty funny. You looking at it right now?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember this
and
comic.
that comic, and it was funny because there were people I knew that didn't even actively read Penny Arcade that like
because it blew up.
Yeah, like that strip was huge. In their post that, I don't know if it was Jerry who wrote it, but I think it was, they state how management at GameSpot has apparently had multiple meetings with Jeff before about some of their previous scores, even prior to Kane and Lynch, and how the growth and revenue of their site was carefully crafted from very certain relationships with some like with
fuck you, man. Fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I know. I can hear your blood boiling.
Several fucking meetings. Probably somebody else called because you gave their game a low review because it sucked.
Yeah.
It's not because...
And he would just shrug his shoulders and go back to work. That was his job. Like, and some of the most prime and relevant examples being that IDOS pulled apparently hundreds of thousands of potential dollars of future advertising revenue following his review. So apparently, like they said, once this review got out, they told GameSpot, they're like, yeah, we're never doing any of that stupid campaign banner ad, make your trailer
journalistic
shit ever
integrity cost us money. And because corporate machines have no value in human life, you're fired.
And the people that made this decision had nothing to do with developing the game. You know,
it was IDOS, not IO.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like iOS Interactive had nothing to do with that. But, like, he also continued to write about the difficulty that those in the review business have to face every day from all sides, whether it's fans or, you know, publishers, and how Jeff himself has been no stranger to controversies like this in the past due to his opinions. Regardless, management there had a very different story, and this is the fake one, like the damage control one. In the link that Penny Arcade provided, those above him claimed that an employee there would never be let go because of a disagreement in review from a publisher. However, this was still no official statement, and people wanted answers, which they still couldn't get from the man himself. I like this quote. So over the weekend that this happened, because this comic was on a Friday, Jeff's home was flooded with more calls than it ever was before, like even before the comic was hit, for people asking about what was happening. And his quote was, this probably wouldn't come much of a surprise, but I'm unable to comment on the rumors surrounding my termination, though I will say that I wish people would stop calling my parents' house at 2 a.m. looking for it. I know the proper stereotype of a game critic is a guy that lives in his parents' basement and all, but geez. Kotaku and Joystick also then publish articles regarding the incident. Many try to reach out to IDOS as well. They remain silent. With the cat out of the bag, that Monday rolls around, and GameSpot had no choice but to put a Q&A post up on their site of their side. The biggest key quotes in their statement, which I will get to in a second. Also, special thanks to GameStop, interestingly enough, by the way, for still somehow having this up on their site. That's where I found this information. I guess GameStop for a while used to actually have a news section on their site before it was just nothing but a store, and this is somehow still up there. Wow, it's very weird. But in the Q&A post that GameSpot put up, that is no longer up, they did at least confirm the termination back on the 28th. They didn't do that until this post, that he was actually fired. Even after people already reaching out to Jeff. Yeah. I will give them that they at least said that part. But that's pretty much all they had to say.
That's the bare minimum.
Yeah. Everything else felt kind of like a lot of bullshit, especially considering the opening line of the post in the Q&A was naming the truth behind Jeff's firing a conspiracy theory. Also, many publications, including GFW,
got the chills.
I know, noted the suspicious nature it was that a company even had to put out a statement regarding a now ex-employee, considering before this, it never really happened in games before. If someone gets terminated, very rarely does a company have to come out and say why. At least back in this era.
Back in this day, now they do.
Now they do, because the personality aspect of it is much larger. But anyway, here's some of the questions and answers I picked from that statement. Question, why was Jeff fired? The answer was, legally the exact reasons behind his dismissal cannot be revealed. However, they stemmed from issues unrelated to any publisher or advertiser. His departure was due purely for internal reasons. Second, why was the Kane & Lynch review text altered? Jeff's supervisors and select members of the edit team felt that the review's negativity did not match its fair 6.0 rating.
Wasn't that negative?
I know. The copy was adjusted several days after its publication so that it better meshed with its score, which remains unchanged. The achievements and demerits it received were also left unaltered.
That makes no fucking sense.
That makes no sense at all.
Why not change the score if you're gonna...
No, change somebody else's words instead.
Because it
that
wasn't...
makes no sense. I don't get that.
Yeah.
If the whole point is that you suffered because of a low score, then commit. Just change the fucking score.
Yeah.
If you're gonna commit to being like Gestapo-esque fucking rewriting somebody's
reviews?
fucking words, then commit and change the fucking score. Don't change the words, which barely anybody's gonna read anyway.
Yeah, that's
change,
a good point.
you know, like...
I wish they went the opposite way and rewrote the review and just gave it a 10. Just to keep Ida's happy, like that would have been hilarious.
They at least made it fucking guts at that point. You know what I mean? Like...
The next question, why was the Kane & Lynch video review taken down? The video was taken down due to concerns of quality. Specifically, its audio was deemed inferior due to a faulty microphone.
Shut up.
There were also concerns about the limited amount of footage, which was unrepresentative of the game in the review. They continue on to say that they didn't have the resources to reshoot and edit a new video during the busy high launch season, I guess as we mentioned before, but they did eventually cave and repost the original after supporter backlash. The next question. Why was IDOS Interactive upset by the game's review? It has been confirmed that IDOS representatives expressed their displeasure to their appropriate contacts at GameSpot, but not to the editorial directly.
What does that even mean?
I don't know.
We just complained to the company. The company did nothing with that information. Definitely not telling the people who were responsible for the review.
Yeah.
Like,
I mentioned a little bit of that relationship earlier, but it's like PR basically contacts the which at this point would be Jeff, because like he's head of the reviews. So
no, I think they contact the advertising team.
It doesn't matter. Okay. Regardless, whoever was contacted, there's no way it just stayed there.
Yeah. No,
obviously not.
Yeah.
If you're on the advertising team for a site like this and someone's like, we're really pissed your company's about to lose a bunch of money, they're not just like, hang up. Like, they're going to be like, oh shit, I got to tell my boss.
The next question, which is the next two, because I only have two more and they're complete bullshit. Did Idos's disappointment cause any of these things? Their answer, absolutely not. They're saying that like cause any of the answer to like his firing and the video review getting taken down on the stuff, which we later, of course, will find out is a total lie. But honestly,
it's not a total lie because it wasn't just that one thing.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the only real kernels of truth in here were some of the issues regarding the video. And when they got asked about the promo ads, they replied that a deal for the dates that they would run were already predetermined long beforehand, and that by the end time it was just coincidental. That I believe could be true.
Yeah,
that's probably true. Because why would they have ads running for that game 2 weeks after it was out? So.
Yeah, that's probably true.
Yeah, that's like the only one I believe. Maybe the video stuff. But this one is my favorite, though. And this is the last one. Why didn't GameSpot write about Jeff's departure sooner? Due to HR procedures and legal considerations, unauthorized CNET networks and GameSpot employees are forbidden from commenting on the employment status of current and former employees. However, the company is now making an exception due to the widespread information that has spread since Jeff's departure. So he doesn't get to speak, but they do.
Yeah, because they made an exception.
I know, but like Jeff is still forbidden from talking about it.
The people who create the rules alter the rules.
I know, it's just so funny. They're like, there was 2 people signed that contract, not 1. Like, I don't know, man. But they ended this post, and this actually gets kind of funny. They ended the post by saying that they wanted to try and restore the user's faith, save their integrity and credibility. So how did they do this? By directing readers to watch tomorrow's live cast of On the Spot, and of course, their Hotspot podcast. You know, the podcast hosted by Jeff's now very upset friends and coworkers who had some pretty strong feelings about the way things were being run internally there.
Yeah.
But yet, we're still being withheld much of the vital information, as well as the entire, you aren't really allowed to talk about this thing. So it's like, it's hilarious that they're like, but listen to the podcast, and the podcast is basically all these guys that were very angry and upset at what just happened.
So to go back to your question from the beginning, this podcast
did you listen to this one?
was like the first thing that got me into
That's
I knew
awesome.
who
The
Jeff
formula
and
and
Alex
stuff.
were before this because of the Big Rigs video.
Yes, the Big
which
Rigs
is
video
great.
was definitely
Everybody
was my
look up
introduction to Alex.
GameSpot's Big Rigs over the road racing
It's
review
so
because it's
good.
hilarious. But that's Alex Navarro. But yeah, this is where I listen to more IGN podcasts, so I know a couple of them. But this is where I started following.
Clips, but...
It's funny because this is where I started following the personalities of GameSpot.
Same.
And then you'll get to it, but I didn't follow GameSpot for very long.
Which this will definitely tie into that. So December 4th, the Hotspot episode goes live. Host Vinny Caravella and regulars Ricardo Torres, Ryan McDonald, Alex Navarro, as you mentioned, and Ryan Davis. They spoke pretty openly about the situation. You can listen to it. I think it's on YouTube still. Someone cut it out. Well, the most that they could disclose publicly anyway, without, under litigation. Expressing the higher-ups' complete lack of communication with them about him, along with the general distaste of how everything was being handled, including the pace of it, while going on to make jokes, because that's what they do, and say that it was, quote, some messed up shit and a complete clusterfuck.
Also, while you're on YouTube looking up old GameSpot podcasts, look up their clip about haze and corn. Because
oh my God,
that is still one of the best bits I've ever heard on any podcast.
The band Korn did a song specifically for that video game Haze.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so funny. There's some real good ones. The Gizmondo one's still my favorite.
Video games are a religion, and Haze is my shit. Is the Pope shit?
Like, none of that quote made any fucking sense. I think that was when Korn, someone just left, so they had one less member too.
Yeah. It's just a picture of the 3 remaining members of Korn and then the dude
guy
from
from
Haze poorly photoshopped in.
Haze was such a disappointment.
Mm-hmm. Made by the GoldenEye guys,
I know.
right?
It was Free Radical. They made Time Splitters.
Oh, the Time Splitters guys.
Yeah.
Shows how much they know.
Fuck
Anyway,
you.
continue.
So they unfortunately couldn't say why, of course, Jeff, was fired, but they did assure that Jeff was doing okay, drinking, but okay. And that his newfound internet fame was funny. They were also quick to squash rumors that he didn't actually play the game. There were supporters of GameSpot back in the day who accused him of that, and like those who stood against his past reviews. And they researched his gamer tag and saw a lack of Kane and Lynch achievements, but most editors at the time played their titles early through codes on debug consoles. So,
all right, not to go on a little mini rant here,
No,
but
get
like
on it.
everybody who follows the games industry, calm the fuck down.
yeah.
You're all being manipulated by corporations. Not to go on my anti-capitalism rant again for like the 5th
We
episode
have to
in a
fit
row.
our quota per episode, really.
But like,
Yeah, well, obviously, fans of anything are garbage.
yeah,
it's true.
First
We
of
were,
all,
we were talking
Fans of
about
anything.
people being mad about games being ported to the Epic Store over Steam, and it's just like, dude, relax. You're giving your
Like,
money
who
to
cares?
corporations either way.
Either way.
You're all getting fucked over. Just calm
I'd
down.
rather Steam take all my money and fuck me over in a Monopoly, not the Fortnite guys.
So Jeff was mostly. Well, we got our Fortnite quota in too. Was it?
I dabbed.
Oh, did you dab? I missed it.
For the auto listeners out there, I
That's
dabbed.
why we gotta do video.
Yeah.
So Jeff was mostly just concerned at the time that the bad blood would come down to the wrong people there, like them, because like the internet not happy with GameSpot right now, and
Yeah.
all these dudes, good dudes, like they didn't have anything to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
Like we mentioned, IO didn't have anything to do with it. It was bad corporate culture and those in charge that really did not at all understand A, the working relationship, and B, Jeff's place in that community. Because
Yeah.
they fucked with the wrong guy. They fired the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Like, Jeff was well known in that in that space. The only thing that they were quick to echo in the site's prior statement were the problems surrounding the quality of the initial video and how it helped create a perfect storm of shit, really. Going on to mention that it was before anything bad started to go down, and that they had plenty of videos taken off the site before to fix, and then to re-upload before, to keep everything consistent with their standards, I guess.
Convenient.
The text review altercations, though, were not mentioned on the podcast. They probably couldn't. Other than that, though, they're very vocal in the. They wanted the same answers that the rest of us did.
Yeah.
They were still left in the dust as to why he was fired.
Yeah.
I'm sure by then Jeff probably talked to them personally, but they could never say that he broke that. And that the site was going to have to do a lot to win people back, or maybe that they would just get fed up and leave.
Which one do you think it is?
Yeah. So you mentioned why we were gonna, before how this was gonna come up, that you started following all these people, and then they immediately broke from that tether. 1 month later, freelance reviewer Frank Provo left GameSpot after 8 years, stating in reference to the parent company that made the final decision to terminate Jeff, "I believe CNET management that let Jeff go for all the wrong reasons. I believe CNET intends to soften the site's tone and to push for higher scores and to make advertisers happy."
Yeah. Yeah. An advertiser was responsible for getting one of our people fired for his journalistic integrity.
Yeah.
I quit.
Yes, exactly. And it wasn't just him, because not long after that...
They fired him because they lost money and they needed somebody to blame.
Yeah, they fixed the problem.
Yeah.
You can't make money reviewing things.
And you know how many people would be eager to take that position? Once he was out.
People.
Yeah,
they put a Band-Aid on the pipe, and then the pressure built and the pipe burst.
Yeah, because one by one, many of the top senior staff at GameSpot began to leave. Jason Ocampo, Brad Shoemaker, the previously mentioned Alex Navarro, Ryan Davis, and the host Vinny Caravella all left as a result of Jeff's termination. It was a total mass exodus, with each person giving Jeff's unjustly termination being the reason for them leaving.
This is the fucking worst part.
I know. Yeah,
Go ahead.
This is dark.
I know it's coming.
So once these guys put in their 2 weeks that they were all leaving, company emails began to get sent out banning Jeff from attending any of the goodbye parties for them. To which they responded by just having them off-site instead.
Yeah.
So they would be like, "Oh, we're having a goodbye party for Brad Shoemaker today. There's pizza in the rec room or whatever." And then he'd be like, "I'm gonna go to the bar down the street actually. And then if anybody actually wants to go to my goodbye party, it's down there." And then they would meet up with Jeff.
Yeah.
In the meantime, Jeff begins writing reviews on his own personal blog, the first of which being Criterion's Burnout Paradise, a game that he still looks back fondly on. Incidentally, this was also Alex Navarro's last review for GameSpot.
He also, I remember I couldn't find where it was because it was on a random podcast. I think it was on the podcast.
Are you going to mention how Alex smuggled out a debug Xbox so that
No,
Jeff
that
could
too.
play Burnout?
Yeah, that
great.
too.
Yeah.
But no. So there's a thing not a lot of people know, which is that game companies will often hire people to do mock reviews. Have you ever heard of this?
Oh, is this like the Crispy Gamer? Was that the one that... Oh,
so.
no. Okay, sorry, I know what you're talking about. Crispy Gamer's just freelance stuff, but...
I don't know if you know about this, Chris, but
this is so weird. Tell the story, yeah.
Basically, there are not a lot of salaried game reviewers anymore. It's a lot of freelancers.
Makes sense.
And
you can fire them for disagreeing with you.
There's not a lot of jobs to go around for freelancers. As I understand it, kind of talking out of my ass, never been a game reviewer, keep that in mind. But there's not a lot of jobs to go around, so game companies will often, before their game comes out, they'll hire a game reviewer to basically do a mock review.
So that maybe they can kind of gauge how
so
the
they can be
game's
like,
gonna do.
This guy knows what he's talking about. He's been in their industry for a while. He reviews the game before it's released a couple months, and then they see if they have any time to fix the issues he had problems with to try to boost the actual review score when the game comes out.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
And Jeff apparently did that for a while.
No, he did, but he refused to accept payment for it, and then he found out that was illegal. So he was like, "I'll do mock reviews, but I don't want to get paid for it because it feels dirty." And then they said, "Well, we have to pay you." And Jeff was like, "Okay, write me a check for $1 and I won't cash it."
Yeah.
And they refused to do it because he really wanted to get paid $1 for a review and he wanted to frame it like a check for $1. By this point, it became more and more clear that his firing was pretty much inevitable, a result of a broken system. like you said. Kane and Lynch just happened to be the catalyst. And by the end of February of 2008, much of their top editors were all gone. Many, such as Brad Shoemaker, went to do freelancing, while Alex left to become community manager for music gaming company Harmonix. Although Ryan, being the buddies of Jeff that he is, continuously would meet up with them, like, to have different plans in mind. Mm-hmm. So after some drunken nights of all these guys playing Rock Band, I can relate, and destroying the infamous copy of Kane and Lynch.
Never played it. What is it?
Because, Rock Band came out this time,
Rat
too.
Band?
Thank you. They made that game.
Thank you. That was the best response I could have asked for.
Wasn't there like a rap version of SingStar or something like that?
There was. Holy shit.
A DJ Hero.
No. That game's great. But what was it? There was. It was like Def Jam SingStar or something like that.
Why not Ska Band?
You know...
Because 4 people would buy a horn controller.
I would. It's just like a horn, but it has the green.
It would also have like 10 songs in it.
Yeah. It's just impression that I get in Superman.
Yeah.
Over and over.
I'd buy that game.
Exactly.
So these dudes were meeting up, playing games together, getting drunk. They destroyed the infamous copy of Kane and Lynch. They defaced it in a way that Jeff will never say.
Yeah.
Why? Which is funny because later on he would talk about how that copy actually did a whole lot for him in the long run, in a positive way. But it wasn't long until he decided that he wanted to do something new, not in game development or public relations, but something more personal. So the two, Ryan and Jeff, began to record a few episodes of their own podcast over Skype using the Rock Band USB microphones. And would name it Arrow Pointing Down. And what's very funny, because it's like, I was reading that and I was like, man, they're starting from like even we started at a level that, like, this was a different era, but I can't imagine if we did this over Skype using Rock Band mics or something.
I remember recording
We wouldn't
Rock
even
Band
need
mics.
Jason.
Yeah. Wait a second.
We could all have
this
a
guy
third.
mooching off the company payroll for too long.
We could all have a third of the no dollars that we make instead of a fourth.
A third of the debt. So this podcast is called Arrow Pointing Down, which is a great name. They apparently they called it this because they wanted to make T-shirts that were just parody. I think I've talked to you about this. Yeah. So they wanted to have shirts that just said like "I'm with stupid" with an arrow pointing down, or like a "Where's the beef" with an arrow pointing down.
That's such a good idea.
Just my kind of humor.
Yeah. But this podcast, the pair would casually discuss new game releases and review weird sodas and energy drinks.
Which they still do on Giant Bomb.
They do. Some of those old podcasts are so weird. They're like opening soda, like energy drinks, and being like, anyway, this one's called, and they're like the weirdest shit that people send to them. But within weeks, they started to work with Shelby Bonnie's Whiskey Media to begin developing a brand new site. They wanted to build something bigger, and thus Giant Bomb was born.
GameSpot 2 was born.
Electric Boogaloo.
Change the name.
No, this was going to be way different than them. So this was founded by Jeff Ryan and web designer and friend Dave Snyder. The site was to feature audio, videos, commentary, news reviews, and a wiki database, but all personality-driven. They wanted to deeply cover the industry, but not from a business perspective. Obviously, Jeff getting pretty burned on that. And they wanted to connect with their followers on a much closer level. This philosophy was actually fairly new to the scene in an age before streamers, YouTubers, and the popularity of things like Let's Plays or podcast networks.
So, fun fact, I don't use the Giant Bomb Wiki all that much.
It's pretty helpful.
I've tried to make some stuff with it because they have a really cool API. Programmer talk, won't get into it.
They used to track achievements as well.
But, interesting fact, so, like, Jeff has talked in the past about how, like, the wiki is really important to him, even though it doesn't make...
He spends a lot of time,
it doesn't make him any money, but he does
himself,
spend a lot of time, like, categorizing games because he's a game collector.
Yes.
So he, like, wants all that information to be out there and, like, not deletable, I guess.
Yeah.
But the Giant Bomb Wiki is actually used by a lot of sites. Twitch uses it.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize this.
Yeah.
They use it for what?
For box art and game titles and release dates and stuff
So when
like
you go
that.
on Twitch and you see like they're scrolling through the games and they have the tabs, like they get that from Giant Bomb's database. So it's like even if you're not a follower of Giant Bomb, their influence is like broken through. Like when they were tracking achievements for a while, because like achievements, do you remember the Gold Rush era of achievements on the 360?
There was a kid I worked with way back when I worked in a grocery store. It was like achievement hunting obsessed. Like, I'd be like talking like, oh, I got a pretty cool, like, oh, I remember getting like what's the Mile High Club achievement?
Yeah, oh my god, Modern Warfare,
and I remember
like, that
finally
achievement's
getting
insane.
it and being like, dude, I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got lucky. 2.2 seconds left.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I played like some Barbie Dreamhouse Easy 1000, like this and this. Like, I'm like, why?
Yeah, like the
Why do you
Avatar
care?
Airbender game, just to get 1,000 points.
Yeah, like,
and but what's funny
who
is,
would do that?
Did you do it? It's on your profile.
I did not buy that Avatar Airbender game from
right?
Target on clearance for $5 to get 1,000 achievement points and return it.
Oh my god,
you did that.
I remember being upset when I came to Xbox One and I had to reset up my Xbox Live and all that shit. I couldn't get access to my old gamer tag because I had forgot the password. And then when I tried to create a new username that was similar to my old one, I couldn't because I had taken the old thing and also forgot the information. So
that's pretty fucking funny, actually.
So I ended up losing like, some 50,000 achievement points, and I was like, what am I ever gonna do? And then like, oh wait, I don't care.
I was an idiot. On the 360, I had multiple profiles because you had to have multiple profiles to play multiplayer games. So like, I had like 8 profiles, and I would just play games randomly on different profiles. So now the key profile I have now, I don't have achievements for most of the first wave of video games.
This is why you don't have friends. Continue.
And plus, the Xbox achievement sound is not nearly as satisfying as it used to be.
Yeah, the trophy one.
Now it's like a diamond. It's
no, it's a diamond one if it's like a rare achievement. Yeah, which is kind of neat. But the funny thing is, like, Microsoft has gotten way better at achievement tracking. But back then, apparently Giant Bomb was the biggest site for doing this, and video game publishers would get in contact for those statistics because a lot of times achievements were used to base how far people would make it in a game. Yeah. That's why there were chapter achievements constantly. So they're like, okay, well, this many people played this game, like, how far did they get before they put it down? Maybe there's a problem with this level, like,
But how did Giant Bomb get it? They were talking to Microsoft. So just go fucking talk to Microsoft.
No, well, that was the funny thing. So Giant Bomb was collecting all this stuff, and then, like, a publisher like EA or Ubisoft would be like, can we have that achievement data? We want to see, like, like, Microsoft's not doing a good enough job to track this, and we want to see how people are doing. So it's interesting is they're building the site in June. Ex-GameSpot editors who left during that exodus, Vinny Caravella and Brad Shoemaker, both joined the team. Even Alex would eventually come back after his time at Harmonix. The site went live on July 20th, 2008, and hasn't missed a week of podcasting since. They brought in more staff, including video intern Drew Scanlon in 2008, better known now as the Blinking White Guy, and founder of Clothmat. The old fans of GameSpot flocked to this site. Like, a lot of people used to follow their content and listen to Hotspot and watch On the Spot back in the day. All came here. Giant Bomb continued to grow and grow, even being voted by Time Magazine as one of the top 50 websites in 2011, which was rare for online gaming publications.
Yeah, I wonder how many other gaming publications.
Yeah, usually those sites are reserved for, like, completely different things. But
Capitalists.com. Sorry.
Top number 1. Every year.
Amazon.
Yeah.
I want to put in here real quick.
Yeah.
This is also a very important point that's going to come up in a little bit.
Yeah.
1 month prior, in June of 2008, CNET was acquired by CBS Interactive.
Yeah, and that's like, it's so weird.
Will come up later.
Coincidences in this story. So their site was doing well, and their podcast called the Giant Bombcast, which they still do to this day, became one of the top listened to gaming podcasts in the world, with hundreds of thousands of people tuning in each week. Even the pretentious...
Yeah, where are you guys at?
Yeah, right? Even the pretentious New Yorker gave it a positive recommendation, saying that it was car talk for gamers.
Hey, whoa, pretentious? Hey, whoa. I love the New Yorker.
If I can read more than one article for free, it's pretentious.
Giant Bomb thrives while the numerous questions behind the scandal at GameSpot years ago seemed like they would never truly be answered. Then in 2012, something very funny happened.
Boom, apocalypse. Hilarious.
Everyone remembers. And while we get to the very last kind of section of our story, I remember when this happened too, because this was very weird. On March 15th of that year, in 2012, Shelby Bunny sold Whiskey Media in 2 deals, splitting all of the company's websites that they owned. Tested, Screened, and Anime Vice were bought by Berman Braun, which is now Whale Rock Industries or whatever.
Tested?
Yeah, they were...
Does that have anything to do with Adam Savage's Tested? Is
Yes.
that what that is? Okay.
Yeah. While Giant Bomb and sister site Comic Vine were sold to CBS Interactive. And why is this relevant? It's, CBS owned GameSpot. And part of the deal was that the non-disparagement agreement between Jeff and CNUT was nullified, allowing him to finally publicly speak openly about his termination that happened 5 years prior. So later that same evening, Jeff appears on camera on GameSpot's On the Spot web show that he used to be a part of with GameSpot VP John Davison, which was his first appearance on the site since he was fired back in 2007. And in the segment, he plainly revealed that his firing was in fact related to the low review score that he had given to Kane and Lynch.
Sweet retribution.
You're right. Something the site aggressively denied for years, even past that original statement. Although his explanation did cite other similar events prior that led to the termination, including a 7.5 good review or rating given to Sony's Ratchet & Clank Future Tools of Destruction by Aaron Thomas, a then employee under Jeff at the time. And Sony wasn't happy with that 7.5.
7.5's a great score.
Not Sony good. You know, so
fuck you, Sony.
It's Ratchet and Clank. Calm down.
I know. Ratchet and Clank's fun, but
it is. It's incredible.
Yeah,
it's an incredible 7.5. They all have been.
It's true. Those I think the new one is probably the best one, the remake. But those higher ups claimed that he, quote, couldn't be trusted anymore as editorial director.
Fuck you.
Because of it, despite IO Interactive never personally asking for his head at any point. They were just artists behind the game. They understood the world of criticism outside their studio. But that first call came in by Sony of America threatening to pull advertising money from the Ratchet & Clank review, while the second and third phone calls were indeed from IDOS concerning Kane and Lynch. 3 phone calls in 1 month, and with both titles, with fairly large budgets at the time. Kane and Lynch was trying to get a movie made at one point, but after that third call, it was it. It also unfortunately seemed like that this was a result of a long standoff between GameSpot's then management division and its editorial staff.
Money in anything that involves ideals is corrupting. Name a time where it hasn't been. Like, fuck off.
Christianity.
Oh, you're right. Money never corrupted ideology of Christianity.
The dinosaurs.
Money never corrupted the ideology behind politics. Money never corrupted the ideology behind fucking journalism.
Yeah. You're going to get dragged away in a van.
Good.
There's people walk in here and just like get hit with a trank dart.
Yeah.
But this was at least a very good faith move on the part of GameSpot's new path. They really wanted to get away from what things were like there during this incident, and along with bringing in some wonderful new hires like Mary Kish and Danny O'Dwyer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that guy.
Yeah, Danny O'Dwyer's the man. Check out his documentary series. Why can't I think of the name? No Clip. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Met him as well. He was a sweetheart. But they wanted to show that this wasn't who they were anymore. He continued to speak elsewhere on the matter too, going wherever he could.
Of course.
Having a sense of humor about it the whole time. He even pointed out the irony of CBS's acquisition of both the old website he used to be a part of and the new one he was running while sitting with Greg Miller on IGN's Up at Noon show, which IGN being the biggest competitor to GameSpot during Jeff's reign. In other reviews, he would say that it was not a decision by the site's founders, of course, Pete Deemer, Vince Brody, and John Epstein, nor connected with the previous departures of coworkers Greg Kasavin or Tim Tracy, a childhood friend of his. Greg Kasavin, who later went on to... Did you found Supergiant?
Supergiant.
Yeah.
He made Bastion and
Transistor.
And
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
He also mentioned in a future...
I've actually never played that. Is that any good?
Which one?
Not the time.
It's my least
we'll
favorite.
He also mentioned on a future Mixler stream that he still to this day doesn't know who leaked the truth of the story to Penny Arcade. His only guess comes from of information getting out comes from, I guess there was a blog called Valleywag. It's now defunct. But it was a Gawker media kind of message board, and his only guess was that some disgruntled friends and employees of his were leaking information from work meetings. So they would people would go to these meetings, and then they would just go to the message board and tell everyone about it.
Yeah, there's no way it wasn't one of his friends.
Exactly, but he said that to this day, no one's ever told him. He still doesn't know. So at the end of our story, Giant Bomb, of course, still thrives today, over a decade later, with as active as a fan base as ever, getting through hardships like the tragic loss of co-founder Ryan Davis, while also celebrating the good times like their annual contributions to Extra Life, to the inclusion of some awesome new members to their, in my opinion, the best working team in the business. I really do love those guys. And I could talk about the impact of this event for even longer. but not nearly as long as I could the impact that Jeff himself has had on the world of covering games. So let's try and forget one of the sorriest chapters in an often sorry relationship between writers and gamers and remember the good that came out of it. But I think that's it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah.
I like that.
At least there's a silver lining.
The direct opposite of the IGN
Musin.
story we did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't. I knew this one probably wasn't as much fun to do because we didn't have some asshole to dog on. Unfortunately, the identities of the people
we did.
responsible for this
Capitalism.
decision. Well, of course, we have that every episode. I wanted a name of some because the thing is according to Jeff and even the new staff and stuff at GameSpot, this decision came from all the way up.
From the machine.
Who know jack fuck about who Jeff is or video games or anything. So it was like
the machine is the enemy.
Yeah,
It doesn't care about your feelings.
No. Yeah.
Doesn't care. It doesn't have a name. Stop blaming each other. Start blaming the machine. Sorry. That's on my different podcast.
We need to get you a punching
Blaming
bag
the machine.
For him.
I'm just kidding. It doesn't exist.
No, that would
Yet.
be good though. I'd be pretty into that. But
That's essentially what we're doing right now.
yeah. But that's our story for today. This was a fun one for me to research just because of all the stories we've done. This is one I feel very personally connected to just because it does involve people that I truly, really respect. But what a stupid and sad state of affairs. Though I guess that would imply that people aren't responsible, and they very much are. So
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah,
But
money corrupts, obviously.
This stuff,
Stay smart.
as far as I'm aware, has gotten a lot better.
yeah.
Like sites,
This was a big exposure.
yeah. Sites don't feud as much as they do anymore.
No, the rivalries are not the same, and
The personalities are a lot stronger on a lot of these sites, so
They're represented.
Probably in
they're
part
not,
to this,
they're not willing
situation.
to fire people like this.
yeah,
and,
they're not as liberal
and
with-
as far as I'm aware, publishers, other than what we talked about earlier, publishers aren't really going out and being like,
after reviewers.
"Hey,
as
fuck
much
you."
as-
I know it's
gotta-
kind of separate, but because something like
Either
Top,
that or they got better at hiding it.
something like Top Gear, car companies lend them cars so they can
Yeah, yeah.
review them. That's
So
no
when they-
small feat. You know what I mean?
when they
that's
hate a
very,
product
very,
that's
very
designed to-
exactly.
yeah.
When somebody spends millions of dollars developing a product
Totally,
and
yeah.
then it gets poorly reviewed by a predominant thing.
It's always
it
weird when
can
you think about
affect
that stuff,
them.
really, yeah.
But the truth is, that's fucking journalism.
It is, yeah.
Make a better product. That's kind of that's the weird thing about what capitalism reinforces, but also negates at the same time.
Totally, yeah.
That the fact that it's oh yeah, hey, you know what? Maybe if you don't make a good product, you should fall to the wayside while everybody else, gets to win in your place. That's
Yeah.
capitalism.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's no, but we can tip the scales because of money. It's
We spent a lot of time at my house talking about criticism, just whether of anything, because it's a fascinating topic that I think it's a part of our day-to-day lives, but for the most part I think a lot of people are actually really naturally bad at it, and they don't understand the usefulness or value of it, but also the subjectiveness and personal bias of it.
Yeah.
And it's part of the reason I know it sounded like I'm gushing about Jeff and his achievements is just because it's he was a big influence on the way that I look at criticism, and which is why it's it's a portion of my brain that I'll never be able to turn off. But I use it as a way of connecting with people, and that's why it's so important to me. That's why it's so valuable. It's a shame that people don't know how to discuss things, and it's funny because it's we're talking about something as innocuous as games, but it's look at even in general personal criticisms and and everything are really hard to give and take for the most part. It's a subject that makes the majority of individuals probably extremely uncomfortable, and it's a shame that we're not better
nonetheless
at,
when there's millions of dollars in advertising money involved.
but it's a shame we're not better at communicating that with each other, because once we get past that, it's it helps you better yourself creatively and
All right, well, here's the lesson.
It's neat.
Just learn to take criticism.
yeah know how to give it as well.
Know how to give it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Pay attention to some criticism.
Yeah.
Not that we're giving lessons out
Find
now or anything.
there's not to quote another person, but you guys are familiar with Dunkey. He did a thing about game critics, and I actually really like a quote that he said in his video, and it's mostly comedy video, but he's very strict on his points, but one of the things that I like that he says is a critic's power lies in the consistency and clarity of their voice, which I thought was brilliant because that a lot of that quote is about getting to know the people who are giving you that information rather than walking around being like, blank gave this, like, you know, it's just like this movie has this score and this video game has this score, gave it, like IGN gave it this or whatever, and it's like you want
to give an extreme fictional scenario. It's like, oh, this racing game got a 40 out of 100. Well, that sucks. Let me look into the writer. Oh, his parents died in a racing crash. You know what I mean? It's like you should follow writers and reviewers.
But it's the same thing that it's like we're probably as people much more inclined to listen to the opinions of the people closest to us more than a stranger because they know what we like.
Feedback loops are amazing. Yeah, we're all a part of them.
Exactly, and it's like I'm sure some of the best recommendations that we've got on anything were probably suggested by somebody. Like somebody showed us something, whether it was to watch or read or play or listen to, and it's like that's I think
like your
where
idol
we need
Hitler.
to get to.
I'm sure somebody told him.
You're really bringing it all the way back around.
You said that so succinctly.
I know, it's just so casually. But I think that's it. Do you?
I'm just kidding. I don't know the riddle to defend himself. Obviously,
I know.
Obviously, he's not a Hitler guy.
Yeah, no. Someone will analyze
Goebbels
this and be like,
way more.
Somebody will
up his alley.
analyze this and be like, he didn't say no.
Dr. Mengele, a big fan. I'll do the plugs. So
who are we, Austin?
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
This has been Hot Button, if you didn't already know that for some reason. We have a website now.
Yeah.
hotbuttoncast.com. It's got links to everything. You can go on that. You can find links to our Twitch, which we haven't done anything with yet. YouTube, which we don't really do anything with yet, but we're planning on stuff in the future.
We got ideas.
We got Google Play, Spotify, iTunes. We got our Podbean on there. We've got our Twitter, our Instagram, our Facebook. If you don't feel like going on the website, it's all at Hot Button Cast. Leave some reviews on iTunes.
Yeah, do that review.
But yeah, check out the website. Hit us up on any social media.
Website.
Let me know what you think.
Is.
Let us know what you think. I made it.
You did.
On really Squarespace. I slaved away on Squarespace for a good 3 hours. So you're welcome, everybody.
So use it for 3 hours.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or more.
That's like
or
1.5 episodes.
By the time this episode comes out, we won't have the live show. We're doing a live show right after this is being recorded.
Yeah, 1 week.
You will see that on the podcast feed, but if we choose to do any live events in the future, those will all be posted on the website, so keep an eye out.
Those of you that did come out,
we love
you. Those of you that didn't come out, fuck you.
I can't believe we got Randy to fist fight that homeless guy for a cheeseburger.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I'm a vegetarian.
His dick was on the cheeseburger.
A veggie burger
time, too.
Yeah.
That's not the point of the joke, dude.
Was it an Impossible Burger or
That's it. We're out.
Yeah, let's explain comedy. I'm done.
All right.